What's up, everybody? My name's Trey. This is Ramsey. Welcome back to Better Days Sports, number one spot for all types of sports shenanigans. And in today's episode, we actually have the fantasy quarter. So Ramsey's going to jump in and give you some recommendation when it comes to your fantasy teams, because we all know you want to win your fantasy league, so you need to listen to this man. But Ramsey, go ahead and take us away.
I appreciate the welcome and introduction, my brother, but let's go ahead and dive right into these waiver wire pickups that we have for week 7. We saw a lot of entertaining football this past weekend, but we saw some things that stood out. Most importantly, I saw Kamal Vidal step into that lead back role out there with the Chargers, with Amari Hampton out on the IR list with that ankle injury. The man led the team with 124 yards and a touchdown, and he's supposed to be the second string or third string technically running back in his field, but third string where? I would say if he hasn't been picked up on a whim yet, he's going to be number 1 on the waiver wire going into this week. So hopefully you are already focusing on that so you can get him on your roster for week 7, because he will definitely be productive until Amari Hampton comes back in about 3 weeks. Moving on, we have another interesting user that we have here, TJ Spears, backup running back for the Titans, right? What was interesting about him is he actually had more snaps than the lead back, Tony Pollard. What does that mean? Is that something for us to look into? Why is the backup running back getting more touches than the lead running back? And this isn't something that we shouldn't be sniffing over, because Tony Pollard was having 18 to 20 touches to start the season out. So is this because of game plan? Is this because they want to go a different direction? Something worth taking a flyer on the waiver wire for to find out, especially in those deep leagues when you just need a win. I would definitely look for TJ Spears to see if he can go ahead and bolster your RB room for sure. Moving on, I want to talk about some players that are probably already on rosters, but if they are, you should definitely see if you could trade for them for a late 4th round or 5th round pick, just depending on how you want to finesse some of these GMs in your fantasy leagues respectfully. But I will go and trade for Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver for the Fourth Day Giants. I know that Jackson Dart is the new quarterback, and he runs a lot, which is really good. I'm actually going to touch on Jackson Dart later in this video, but for Wan'Dale Robinson, we could see something similar to what we're experiencing down there in Dallas with George Pickens and Dak Prescott, where George Pickens is now wide receiver number 1, and we see the benefits fantasy-wise it is playing for his value as a receiver. The same thing can be said for Wan'Dale Robinson potentially, because Jackson Dart was a top 10 quarterback last week. Even though a lot of that is attributed to rushing yards, it's still worth noting that Malik Neighbors is still out for the season, and Darius Slayton is out as well. Wan'Dale Robinson is now wide receiver number 1. So Dart has to throw eventually, right? And I think that if you trust in Dart, all of these New York Football Giant faithful fans should definitely go ahead and get the stack going of Wan'Dale and Jackson Dart if you can. Moving on, I also want to see if you can do a late 6th or 7th round draft pick, or see if he's still on the waiver wire. Look into Kendrick Bourne. I know that he was going to be a quote-unquote boomer bust depending on how he was going to perform based on how the 49ers whole team is on the injury report at this point in the season, right? But Kendrick Bourne, even with Jawan Jennings returning, still had a pretty good game. He had 9 targets, 5 receptions, and 142 yards. And that's with one of their receivers returning back into the fold. Now, you could attribute that to Jawan Jennings getting used to the offense and getting warmed back up, but still, points are points, stats are stats. And as we know, the San Francisco 49ers are as unpredictable as anyone when it comes to availability with any of their players. So I would definitely look into acquiring Kendrick Bourne just based on the injuries that have plagued the 49ers this season so far. And I think that it will fare for you very well moving down the road. We'll be getting to those really tough back-to-back matchups in the fantasy season where you have to beat 2 teams to make the playoffs, depending on how your setup is. But moving on, I brought him up in the last video, but Josh Downs. Josh Downs is a very sneaky, effective flex option. Not saying he's a starter, but in a pinch, players on a bye week, we're about to come up at that point in the season where some of the best players are going to be on bye weeks. Those spots need to be taken up by someone. I would take a flyer and go and see if you could get Josh Downs on the waiver wire if you can. He looks really good in Indy's offense, and that's mostly attributed to Daniel Jones. Can't believe I'm saying that out loud, but still.
You might need to say that again, because you've been talking some slander on that man.
You know, I will give Daniel Jones the benefit of the doubt right now. The Colts look very good. They're 5-1. They're leading the AFC South, but their schedule is really nice. So as long as he can stay the course, they may be one of those teams worth talking about come December when we're talking about first round buys even maybe. But that's far down the road, and we will get into that in another video. But back to the point of Josh Downs, he does have a really good quarterback who was having that team running like a well-oiled machine, and he scored a touchdown this past week. So that leads me to believe that more touches are going to be coming his way. I would definitely go and see if you could just get on the waiver wire and see if you can get something for Josh Downs. Also in a trade if you are feeling risky, because I'm pretty sure that people don't realize how valuable he's going to be for that team down the road. Now, let's talk about Trey Tucker. Is Trey Tucker the new #1 receiver for the Raiders? Is it worth us asking this question? You know, I understand that some of this could be attributed to Geno Smith's quarterback play. He leads the league in interceptions. There is no excuse for that. But also, why are all of these touches going to Trey Tucker's and not Jacoby Myers? Jacoby Myers is a name that everybody knows because he used to be reliable. The guy who would give you at least 11 to 12 fantasy points because he just knew how to stay productive even with a bad offense. This is different. He's being affected. I don't know if it's because of the coverages that he is now seeing. I don't know if there's chemistry issues between him and Geno Smith, or maybe Geno Smith just found a target that he prefers. But regardless of the fact, I think that Trey Tucker definitely should be on your radar, because even though the Raiders are unpredictable, Geno Smith can definitely have one of those games where he goes off for 4 touchdowns, and I guarantee you that 3 of those will probably be to Trey Tucker, especially if they're passing. So definitely we'll look into Trey Tucker as a short-term option, not a long-term option, because the Raiders are unpredictable, but we're talking about fantasy risers here. And Trey Tucker is definitely rising up my waiver wire board of people that you must pay attention to. Lastly, I do want to talk about Harold Fannin Jr., tight end for the Cleveland Browns. He was productive in the 2 tight end set with David Njoku currently, even with the erratic quarterback play of the Cleveland Browns currently. But new quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, threw the ball 40-something ought not times. I don't know if that was by design, but the way that I see that is 47 targets means that there's more targets to be shared amongst those receivers. Jerry Jeudy, Harold Fannin, Cedric Tillman, and more. So, with that being said, David Njoku is dealing with a concussion. Harold Fannin will now be tight end #1, depending on David Njoku's availability. But if we follow the NFL's regulations when it comes to concussions and injuries, it looks like he's going to miss at least a week. So why not take a flyer on the #1 tight end for the Cleveland Browns if you do need a tight end or just want to shake up your lineup just a little bit. Now, to wrap this up, guys, I want to talk about some of the best matchups that we have in terms of quarterbacks and running backs across the league. So 2 running back matchups really stand out to me, just in terms of who's playing and the defenses that they play. And it's funny because they're actually playing each other. The Commanders and the Panthers. You have 2 very established running backs in Krosky Merritt and Rico Dowdle. And the only reason I say established is because we've heard of Rico Dowdle before. But it's almost as if he wanted to remind us of who he is, because I have not been able to understand how he has made himself look like the lead running back for the Panthers and should have been for the whole season over Chuba Hubbard. And he's playing so well that Chuba Hubbard might be a trade target now, which, why not take a trade? Why not take a flyer on Chuba Hubbard if he gets traded to a team that really needs a run game? Chargers are talking about trading for a back. Alvin Kamara is also on that list. So we will definitely see what happens of it, but at least focusing for this matchup, Rico Dowdle is definitely running back #1 for the Panthers, and Krosky Merritt is definitely going to be #1 running back for the Commanders. And I think that they're both going to be running up and down the field. So in terms of great running back matchups, you would definitely look forward to the Commanders and the Panthers on your schedule. But with that being said, I would stay away from both of those defenses for that matchup, specifically for that reason as well. So Lastly, I want to talk about some wide receiver matchups that we have coming up in week 7. And the one that really stands out to me right now is Amon-Ra St. Brown against the Vikings. I know the Vikings, they do have a great defense. I know that they're going through an adjustment period with J.J. McCarthy out and Carson Wentz leading that offense. But when they are healthy, we know what they can do. Ask Sam Darnold what he did with that team last year. So I think after the Lions getting embarrassed in Kansas City are going to make all of that the Vikings' problem and run it up against the Vikings because they got embarrassed by Kansas City. And that bodes badly for the Vikings defense, but great for anyone that has anyone on the Detroit Lions offense, namely Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I would definitely look for him to have a big day this upcoming week. And I also look forward to A.J. Brown having a big week this upcoming week. And I know that that's a touchy subject. I know that everybody's been talking about the drama and the unknown surrounding this Philadelphia Eagles football team because they're facing a little bit of adversity. It's just a Super Bowl hangover. They're going to figure it out. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They play the Giants. I think they'll be fine. You know, I don't want to laugh and predate something here, but it didn't bode well for them the last time that this happened. So I'm over here going off of the hope and prayer that it's going to actually go much better in their favor. And I would definitely put A.J. Brown in your starting lineups this week. And I know that he has been a trade piece. I would say wait until after this week. Give him one more week before you say A.J. Brown needs to go. So give him one more week. And lastly, I have Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed for the Packers. And the only reason I'm putting Jaden Reed on this list right now is because Jordan Love has been playing very well. I think that the Green Bay Packers are a very sound machine, and I think that they will be very productive in the way that Jaden Reed may get a touchdown or two, courtesy at the hands of Jordan Love. So that's what I'm going off of, at least for this week. But those are my picks so far. So talk to me, my brother in Christ. How do you feel about the picks that I have laid out for the people?
Feel good about him. I think the A.J. Brown one is going to be interesting, and a lot of people won't want to touch that with a stick as far as they can, just because of what we've seen, leading up to this point. But I think they are definitely primed and ready for a big offensive game, so that's definitely one I'm going to keep my eye on. But really appreciate everybody stopping by for the Fantasy Quarter. Like I said, listen to this man. He's trying to get you right so you can get a trophy and hang it up in your garage so all the boys know that you're a winner in your life. And just like that, really appreciate you stopping by. If you are new to the channel, if you're new to the pod, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell to get notified every time we post a video. And leave a comment in the comment section down below. How did you feel about these picks? Because maybe you're feeling differently. We would like to hear, or I guess read, your opinion. And just like that, we will see you in the next one. Peace.